So, who do you think is going to be the best of the next generation? Once all the current greats hang up their gloves and pass on the torch, who do you think is going to be there to catch it? Stick around to the end of the video to get a pretty decent idea. So, how this video is going to work is we are going to travel forward to the year 2029, and I am going to do my personal predictions of who I think the top 5 pound for pound fighters will be at the time. Before top spot, I will give a few honorable mentions, so stick around for that. But for now, let's get into number 5. So coming in at number 5, we have Abdullah Mason, who is a 20-year-old American and in 2029 will be 25 years old, probably coming into his physical peak in his prime. As of right now, he has a record of 15-0 with 13 KOs. Right now, he hasn't really fought anyone of note. It's mainly just the eye test that is catching a lot of people's attention. And also the way he just seems to get technically better with every fight he's in. I didn't really hear too much about him until I did research for this video, so I watched all the highlights of his most recent fights, like his last 6 or 7, and every single fight he seemed to step up in those levels in terms of his hand speed, his technical ability, his head movement. Just every fight it got better and better, which is an amazing sign to see. You can tell that he's putting that work in the gym, he's perfecting his craft, he's studying. So he seems to have a very good attitude, especially for someone so young. And not to mention Bob Arum and Top Rank in general have hyped him up a lot and have pushed him very heavily. Like I said, he has time on his side. Right now, he's only 20. In 5 years, he's still only going to be 25, which is really young still. So I believe he has plenty of time to move up slowly over the next couple of years, get himself a title shot. And although he was on the undercard of the Joshua Usyk fight in Saudi, now that Top Rank has signed to Riyadh season, it would be nice to see him on a lot more of these Saudi undercards just to raise his profile and level of opposition, because you know if Turki Al-Sheikh puts him in there with anyone, it's going to be decent. Look what he did with Gerard Anderson and Bacoli. He seems to be a big fan of throwing these young fighters in the deep water and seeing if they swim or not. So I feel he could be even higher, depending. There is a lot of question marks to be answered about him as he moves up them levels. How would he deal with adversity? How is his chin? Etc, etc. But for now, I think he's a pretty good shot for the top 5. So now on to number 4. So at number 4, we have another 20-year-old child prodigy in Moses Itauma. Now, like I said, he is 20 right now. In 2029, he will be 25 as well. Coming into his physical peak, if he hasn't already, he is a massive guy for his age. He's like 6'5", over 200 pounds, and seems to suit that weight very well. You can tell he's not carrying any artificial weight just based on the speed he still has. He has an amazing amateur pedigree, won multiple amateur championships. It's been said, don't know how true it is, he hasn't had a close fight since he was like 11 years old. And I'm sure by now we've all heard the sparring stories of him coming into the gym in his school uniform, fighting people like Daniel Dubois, AJ, Lawrence Okoli in sparring, and not only holding his own. Lawrence Okoli has said that they were some of the toughest spars of his life against a child, Moses Itauma, really. So it's pretty clear to see this guy is special. He seems to have his head screwed on right and be very mature and wise above his years. When you look into the eye test, his speed and his combinations are exceptional. He seems to have great finishing ability. Look how he dealt with Mariusz Wach, even though he was extremely over the hill. He is still a tough son of a bitch, Mariusz Wach. Klitschko couldn't finish him. Dillian White couldn't finish him. Fraser Clark couldn't finish him. But most of the time, it took him out in 2 rounds. So as we see him incrementally step up through the levels, we'll see if he can keep that. Once again, it's the same with Abdullah Mason. We need to see how he's going to react in the professional ranks against the top level opposition. But since he's already been known for sparring top level opposition years back, and he's done a lot more physical and mental development since then, I have every belief that he could hang in there with any heavyweight on the planet right now. Especially in 5 years' time, when the likes of Fury, AJ, Usyk hang up their gloves. he is definitely going to be there or thereabouts. And in 5 years' time, he could be pushing towards an undisputed. I feel like, based on the recent interviews I've seen of him, he has kind of given up on breaking Mike Tyson's record a bit. He's been saying that he didn't realize politics would get in the way so much. So maybe that is a blessing in disguise. Maybe his team, Frank Warren, can move him up through the levels a bit more gradually and not have to rush him into a title shot so soon. But I definitely feel within 5 years he's going to be going for that undisputed heavyweight. He is a generational talent potentially if he fulfills his potential. And we're just going to have to wait and see. I'm really excited to see how his career does pan out. Same with Abdullah Mason. But for the same reason of them two just being the younger two on this list, that's why they're at 4 and 5. I feel come 2029, they'll be starting to come into their own. So I've got Abdullah Mason at number 5, Moses Itauma at number 4. Let's move on to number 3. So ranked number 3 in the 2029 pound for pound list, we have Jai Opetaia. Now, I'm pretty sure you started to hear about Jai Opetaia now. He is currently 29 years old. In 2029, he will be 34. So right now, he has a perfect record of 25-0 with 19 KOs. He is already most likely the best cruiserweight on the planet right now. Already has incredible boxing skills and also has that viciousness, that nastiness to him. An incredible KO artist. And he really is just a joy to watch, to be honest. And I can imagine that his boxing style alone will make him a very big name in the future, especially when he does move up to heavyweight. I feel like his hand speed and his foot speed, his mobility, his ability to get in range, deal great damage, and get out of range before you can react. I feel just like Usyk, that will serve him very well in the heavyweight ranks. I can really see a slightly bigger version of Jai Opetaia beating the likes of Filip Hrgovic, Gerard Anderson, maybe even a Daniel Dubois. I feel in 2029 it's going to be between Daniel Dubois, Moses Itauma, and Jai Opetaia, gunning for all those heavyweight belts. Sounds like it's going to be a really interesting era coming ahead if that does pan out. I can't wait to see. And especially, we know how tough Jai Opetaia is. We know he has a great chin. We know he has great heart. So I have no doubt he could make it in the heavyweight ranks. Just look how he beat Mairis Briedis with a broken jaw. The guy had a broken jaw on both sides. His jaw was hanging off practically in the last few rounds of their first fight. And he had the heart and the perseverance to carry that win through. And not only that, he was severely outboxing Mairis Briedis before the broken jaw for the majority of the fight. Mairis Briedis is definitely no pushover. He gave Usyk his biggest ever test at cruiserweight. So he is the real deal. He probably has, out of everyone on this top 5, probably the best name on his record in Mairis Briedis. The one question I do have over him is his performance in the rematch with Mairis Briedis. He did seem pretty gun shy. I don't know whether that broken jaw has affected him psychologically. And to be honest, if we had a less rusty Briedis in that rematch, he very likely could have won. Jai Opetaia nearly gave the fight away in the second half. Briedis just came on too late to make a difference. So that is the one question mark over him, whether he has any psychological demons from that broken jaw. Maybe it is just against that one particular opponent. But like I said, he's incredibly mentally and physically tough. I have no doubt he's going to get over that, if it even is an issue, in 5 years' time. And the other thing we have is he's already been a very avoided fighter. You see the likes of Chris Billam-Smith and Gilberto Ramirez kind of avoiding fighting him. So I do hope he gets on more of these Saudi cards and Turki Al-Sheikh is able to actually make these fights happen so he can unify cruiserweight and move up to heavyweight. I feel if he does have an undisputed cruiserweight in his name when he is fighting in the heavyweights in 5 years' time, that is really going to help him in the pound for pound rankings. As of right now, I feel like number 3 is a pretty good place to put him. And only because we have 2 exceptional talents in front of him. So let's find out who they are. Let's move on to number 2. So coming in at number 2, we have Jesse Bam Rodriguez. Now, this guy is already a special talent. He's arguably already on the pound for pound top 10 list. So I have no doubt him being only 24 years old. He'll only be 29 years old in 2029. He is definitely going to be there or thereabouts on the pound for pound list. He already has a perfect record of 20-0 with 13 knockouts. He is probably the most accomplished fighter on this list currently. He already has world titles at fly and super flyweight, and probably the best resume, beating Carlos Cuadras and Juan Estrada, two very good names in those lighter weight divisions. He, when you just look at the eye test alone, he has amazing footwork, amazing speed, amazing boxing IQ, can take a pretty decent punch as well. And not only to mention that this day and age, there is a lot of quality fighters in those lower weight divisions, which can really serve him well in terms of his pound for pound ranking as he steps towards his physical peak, which will probably be there or thereabouts in 2029 when he's probably going to be at the peak of his powers. He might even, you never know, have a fight against Inoue on his record if he does decide to keep moving up those weight divisions. If he does, and he does fight an agent Inoue and beats him, he's going to be a 3 or 4 weight world champion with one of the modern pound for pound greats on his record. So that is going to serve him greatly. So I can't really see any way I could put him outside of the top 2 right now. He could even be number 1, depending on how the guy I've put at number 1's career pans out. So let's check him out. But first, let's reel off a few honorable mentions that didn't quite make the list, but I definitely feel will be there or thereabouts in 2029. You've got Daniel Dubois, who is only going to be in his early 30s by the time that rolls around. If he gets that win over AJ, big if, and manages to defend his belt a good few times over the next couple of years, like I said, fight the likes of Jayo Pataya and Moses Itauma, who are coming up in the heavyweight rankings, most likely in the next few years. It'll be really interesting to see where he ends up. You've got Andy Cruz, who I feel that he'll probably be in his mid-30s by the time 2029 rolls about, so he might be slightly over the hill. But very talented fighter, he could be there or thereabouts, most definitely. You've got the 2 guys who have moved up to light heavyweight because they kept being docked by Canelo, the David Morales and David Benavidez's of the world, and the fact they are being ducked by Canelo just shows how great a fighter they both are. Depending on whether they can hang in that light heavyweight division, especially once the likes of Bivol and Beterbiev have retired, I can definitely see them in the top 10 pound for pound rankings at least. And the 2 wild cards I was thinking is maybe Gerard Anderson, depending on whether he is mentally there, if his heart is in the sport still at that point. According to him, he's going to be retired by that point, so who knows. But I definitely feel if he can get his passion for boxing on check, then he can come back from that loss to Bacoli and make some noise, but I don't think enough to be in the top 5 pound for pound rankings. And you might even have an Agent Shakur Stevenson knocking around there or thereabouts still in 2029. So now we've got that out the way, let's move to number 1 on this list. So the guy who I have number 1 on this list, who I believe in 5 years' time is going to be the best pound for pound fighter on the planet, is Jaron Boots Ennis. He is currently 27 years old. He will be 32 by the time 2029 rolls around. Still very physically in his peak. In terms of ring IQ and mentality, he will probably have come on leaps and bounds from today. So I believe he is a special talent, a potentially generational great. All you have to do is look at him fight. His fluidity, his hand speed, his killer instinct. Look at his KO percentage. The guy has 32 victories, no losses, 29 KOs. That is an insane KO percentage. Has that killer instinct just like Terence Crawford, who he is chasing a fight against. I'm not sure if it's too soon for him to move up to that level, but if he does get the Crawford fight within the next couple of years, it's a win-win for him. He either beats Crawford, which already puts him in there or thereabouts for the pound for pound rankings, and if he loses against Crawford, he's still young enough and early enough in his career where he can do what Canelo did with Mayweather, learn the lessons from that loss, come back even stronger, and dominate the division after Crawford goes. And he was already a world champion at welterweight, so he has plenty of time to get that undisputed at welterweight and move up to junior middle and win a few belts there as well. He has plenty of time to do that within the next 5 years. He is already an extremely accomplished fighter. Maybe apart from recently with Avanesian, he doesn't have too many standout names on his record, but the eye test alone is there for anyone to see the guy is special. Providing no tragic injuries occur, I can't see him anywhere other than the number one pound for pound. The one question mark you can have over him is he does have a pretty leaky defense right now. So if he was to step up to the level of someone like Crawford, I believe that could be exposed. But 5 years is plenty of time for him to get that in check. And if he does, I can't see him not being the greatest fighter on the planet at that point. I have to give the number one pound for pound ranking for 2029 to Boots Ennis. Just can't slice it any other way, really. So what do you guys think? Do you agree with my list? Do you agree with it, but you think it's in the wrong order? Are there any other names that I missed out that you feel will be there or thereabouts? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're new here, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the share button, all that good algorithm stuff that really helps the channel out. It was great looking towards the future today, but as they say, studying the past is the best way to predict the future. So if you want to learn a bit more about the greats of the past, I have a fantasy boxing tournament series that I bring a video out for weekly, that I pit some of the older legends of the past from different eras against each other in a hypothetical tournament. I'm going to leave a link to it right by here. We will be back with a new video very soon, guys. But till then, peace.